Chapter 3680. Hearing this, Ningyu laughed loudly. Mu Yen, you said it too well. Ha ha ha, I told you, you're the only one I like in the whole Ning family. As they spoke, the two were already leaning against each other. They were just two little girls who hadn't reached the heaven-breaking state, but facing Ning Kunshin, a third-level abstruse immortal, they didn't have the slightest bit of fear. Ning Kunshin's eyes were cold. The dense wrinkles on his face trembled slightly. Then he sighed. Ningyu, you forced the old ancestor to do this. Fuxing, I killed your only son and granddaughter, will you blame me? Ning Fuxing shook his head expressionlessly. Why would I? Fuxing knows that everything the old ancestor did was for the Ning family. As long as the Ning family can prosper, and the old ancestor can live well, anyone should pay any price. Mu Yen didn't react to Ning Fuxing's words. Ningyu suddenly clenched the sword in her hand, and her body couldn't help trembling in anger. Ning Zhongbai's face was even paler, and his eyes were red. After Ning Fuxing said this, a mandarin duck crutch appeared in Ning Kunshin's hand. This crutch was thick, and looked like a black crutch. But when Ning Kunshin injected spiritual power into it, the crutch immediately emitted a strong murderous aura. It lightly touched the ground, and the hardest rock immediately cracked like a spider web. Ningyu's face was pale, and she whispered to Mu Yen, that's the old monster's Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutch, a superb divine king tool. I'll block her, and you just need to find a way to stall for time. Soon, your sweetheart will come to save you. Mu Yen was startled, and looked at Ningyu in surprise. How did Ningyu know that she wanted to stall for time? And how did she know that Di Mingju would come to save her? In fact, with Mu Yan's current cultivation, Ningyu, and the other Ning family members, including the heaven-breaking state Ning Fuxing, Ning Zhengwen, and Ning Jinwu, could all contend against them. But against Ning Kunshin, it was extremely difficult. Basically, she didn't even have a 10% chance of winning. What's more, Yin Yuanyi and the others were watching the fun from the sidelines. During the fight with Ning Fuxing and the others, Mu Yen could feel a greedy and excited gaze on her. Even though Yin Yuanyi and the others didn't move, Mu Yen doesn't think that he would be kind enough to let her go. That was her only hope now. It was the little chick that had gone out to ask for help. The gates of the Ning family's bunker were tightly shut. Little chick couldn't get out. That might not be the case. In terms of luck value, even little treasure couldn't compare to the little chick. As long as the little chick could find the people of the Falling Moon tribe, he would still have a chance of survival. While Mu Yen and Ningyu have their own thoughts, Ning Kuan-shan's attack has already arrived. The curling airwaves rolled along with the movement of the Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutches in the air. Above the walking stick, the thing that looked like a mandarin duck or two ghostly faces suddenly began to spin violently. Ning Kunshin soared into the sky. The mandarin duck crutch floated in mid-air before striking out with a palm. Boom! The blue stone on the ground cracked open. Countless trees and grasses were swept up into the sky, forming a huge whirlpool that enveloped Mu Yen and Ningyu. It's the Blood Sea Ghost Wave. Mu Yen, be careful. Don't get cut by the red blades in the hurricane, or else, Ningyu had just reminded him. A red blade flew out of the hurricane and directly cut her arm. Ningyu immediately grunted. Blood gushed out of the small wound like a fountain. Chapter 3681. The wounds caused by the blood ghost blade will not heal until all the blood is drained. Ningyu tried her best to finish this reminder. Then, disregarding his bleeding wound, he looked for an opening and attacked Ning Kunshin in the air without any hesitation. Ningyu's sword light was already in front of him. Ning Kunshin sneered. He waved the walking stick in his hand. A dark purple light suddenly shot out from the ghost-faced mandarin duck on the walking stick, heading straight for Ningyu. watch out. Ning Zhongbai knew what was shot out from the Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutch. It was the Ning family's unique poison that could take someone's life in an instant, Yama's death taker. No cultivator below the heaven-breaking state could block it. Ning Zhongbai knew his father and ancestor were cruel. But he had never imagined that they would be so heartless. Ning Zhongbai shouted and wanted to rush in front of his daughter. But he was only at the mysterious life state now. He couldn't participate in a battle of this level. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the dark green light had already sprayed onto Ningyu. Even her protective clothes made a sizzling sound after coming into contact with Yama's death taker. Then, a hole was burned through. Ning Kunshan's eyes showed some pity. Then he shook his head and sighed. Ningyu was the most promising among his grandchildren, other than Ning Su. Ning Su was too stubborn. Now that the soundless doppelganger was broken, it would sleep for at least 100 years. Ningyu was supposed to be the Ning family junior that he valued the most. But Ningyu didn't know what was good for her and didn't understand his good intentions. She was too disloyal and unfilial. She didn't know how to be grateful. He felt sad and reluctant to kill his own blood relative. However, he had no choice but to do so. Tears appeared in Ning Kunshan's eyes, as if he was extremely sad. But Yama's death taker had already burned Ningyu's skin. The horrifying purplish color spread to her entire hand, and even her entire body. Ning Kunshan didn't have any intention of stopping her. Suddenly, Ning Kunshan's eyelid twitched. An ominous premonition suddenly welled up in his heart. Boom! A loud sound exploded in the air. The light from the golden crow fireball almost blinded people's eyes. Ning Fuxing's expression changed drastically. He stared at the figure that was burned to ashes in the air and let out a shrill scream, "Ancestor." He suddenly turns to look at Mu Yan and Ningyu. At this time, Mu Yan had already arrived at Ningyu's side and was feeding her an antidote. No one on the floating island could dispel Yama takes life. But that doesn't mean that Mayan can't solve it. Everything that had just happened was actually planned by her and Ningyu. One of them was in the open and the other was in the dark, one attacking and one defending. With Ningyu attracting Ning Kunshan's attention, Mu Yan launches the Shin musician skill, Heavy Phantom. Ning Kunshan thought that she was still trapped in the blood sea of ghostly waves. In reality, he had already secretly controlled the golden crow fire essence, and attached it to the 7 extinction mother and child sword. He secretly launched a fatal attack on Ning Kunshan. Ning Fuxing's eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent as he looked at the two of them. How dare you kill our ancestor? Evil creatures! You are not worthy of being a descendant of the Ning family. I will kill you and clean up the house for the Ning family. Mu Yan sneered, that's why the old thing wants to kill us. We can't resist, we can only let him kill us. I have no interest in being a member of the Ning family. If you want to be one, go be one yourself. Chapter 3682. Ningyu's face was also full of disdain. Grandfather, you have been with that old monster for so many years, don't you understand his conduct? Do you think he will die so easily? Fuxing, don't panic. I'm fine. Ning Kunshan's voice came from behind Ning Fuxing. He lightly patted Ning Fuxing's shoulder, his voice gentle. These two girls really have some skill. I, the old ancestor, was careless and almost made a fool of myself. Fortunately, I used the shifting forms in the nick of time, so I was not burned by the golden crow fire. Ning Fuxing stilled, then heard an exclamation come from behind him. Husband, where did husband go? He was clearly here just now. The person who shouted was Ning Fuxing's concubine granddaughter-in-law. He immediately reacted. At the critical moment just now, Ning Kunshan had used the shifting forms to switch his position with this concubine grandchild, using the concubine grandchild's life in exchange for his own safety. Ning Fuxing, who learned of this news, was not angry, but gave a long sigh of relief. His eyes were filled with relief and joy. Fuxing knew that old ancestor would be fine. As for that concubine grandchild, he was just an ordinary person, unimportant. If he died, then he died. To be able to use his life in exchange for the old ancestor's life, in exchange for a prosperous future of the Ning family, it was a worthy death. Looking at the actions of the two, Mu Yan felt nauseous. Ning Yu's expression was icy, the last thread of warmth in her eyes replaced by disgust. Was this kind of family still a family? Was this kind of family still family? She suddenly grasped the hand of Ning Zhongbai, who had hurried over, saying resolutely, "Father, let's leave the Ning family." Ning Zhongbai stilled, dazedly looking at her. Ning Yu looked at him with a determined gaze, her entire body seeming to give off a dazzling light. "Father, if you cannot see the sun, we will find a place to build a small bunker. Don't let it be as empty as an ancient tomb, just small enough for a few people to live in. In the future, when we find a son-in-law, I will give birth to some children for you to play with. At that time, we will build a new family, and you will never be lonely again." Mu Yan smiled. "Why find a new place to build a bunker? Why don't we go to my Xiaoyao city? We can look after each other as a family. Also, I might have a way to solve second uncle's problem of not being able to see the sun for a long time." Hearing this, Ning Yu was pleasantly surprised. "Mayan, is this true?" Mayan nods, but she doesn't say much on this occasion. As long as it was related to the curse. Up until now, she had never seen anyone who knew more than her third senior brother. Although he didn't reveal himself and didn't explain why he knew so much about curses, he didn't reveal anything. But Mayan had never doubted that third senior brother would never harm her. As for second uncle's condition, as long as he brought him back and asked third senior brother for help, he would definitely be able to resolve it. The smile on Ning Yu's face became even more excited and expectant. She held Ning Zhongbai's hand tightly and said in a trembling voice, "Father, did you hear that? In the future, you'll be able to walk under the sun, and you won't need to be locked up in a graveyard like the Ning family. After today's matter, let's leave the Ning family together and never come back, okay?" Ning Zhongbai's eyes gradually lit up with hope. The corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. Even if he was just imagining it, he felt that the future described by his daughter and niece was so beautiful. Chapter 3684. Ning Fuxing sees the golden crow fire essence quietly flying towards Mayan. He suddenly raises his hand and punches Ning Zhongbai's abdomen. This punch contains powerful spiritual power. Ning Zhongbai's already dying body spits out another mouthful of blood, completely losing consciousness. Looking at Ning Zhongbai's face that is beginning to be shrouded in death. Mayan's face changes, and she snaps, "We give up resisting, don't hurt second uncle." She throws the 7 absolute sword on the ground without hesitation. Ning Yu closes her eyes, grits her teeth, and also throws the weapon in her hand on the ground. Ning Kunshan looks at Mayan with a smile. "Girl, if I remember correctly, you should still have a zither." Mayan gives him an indifferent look. She takes out the Tian Mo Chin and also throws it on the ground. Ning Kunshan's gaze unconsciously drifts to the Tian Mo Chin, and his eyes darken. He doesn't know why. It's clearly just a very unremarkable zither. But when he looks at it carefully, it makes him tremble with fear. Moreover, he vaguely feels that he seems to have seen this zither somewhere before. "Show this gu the zither." Yin Yuani's arrogant voice comes from behind, interrupting Ning Kunshan's thoughts. Ning Kunshan comes back to his senses, revealing a gentle smile, and says to a servant of the Ning family, "Young Master Yin said that he wants to see the zither. What are you waiting for? Quickly bring it over." The Ning family servant quickly brings the Tian Mo Chin to Yin Yuanyi. Yin Yuanyi casually fiddles with it. He finds that it's impossible to play this famous Tian Mo Chin in the three realms without being a descendant of the Shin musician. He can't help but raise his head and look at the girl not far away. Just in time to meet her line of sight. After the baptism of battle, the pair of peach blossom eyes that are already rippling like water become brighter and more seductive. Yin Yuanyi only feels a burst of excitement, and his mouth is dry. He can't wait to enjoy this woman. On the other side, Ning Kunshan looks at Mayan with a pair of kind eyes, and says warmly, "Do you have anything else to say?" Mu Yan hooks up her lips, and slowly says, "You previously said that through the sacrifices of the Ning family one after another, the curse that the Palace Master of Magic Illusion Palace left for the Ning family has already been dispelled bit by bit. Now it seems that the situation is clearly the opposite." Ning Kunshan narrowed his eyes slightly, and his expression became a little dangerous. The smile on Mu Yan's face deepens. "Perhaps, I should say this, it's not that the Ning family situation is very bad, it's that your situation is very bad, right?" His old, rotten body could no longer accommodate an ambitious and selfish soul. Even if you use the lives of so many descendants of the Ning family to pay for it, you are getting closer and closer to the abyss of death. What's that curse called again? Chapter 3686. Mu Yan. Ningyu screamed and wanted to rush over to save her. But two whips immediately lashed at her. They blocked her way. They were Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu. They had received Ning Fuxing's order to kill Ningyu. Time went by. As the spiritual power in her body was drained, Mu Yan's face was pale. She couldn't hold on any longer and fell down softly. Ning Kunshan withdrew his hand and took a deep breath. His face showed an incomparably happy expression. "Girl, your spirit root is even purer than your mother's Yen Xian's." There seemed to be a flash of regret in his eyes. He said in a low voice that others couldn't hear, "It's a pity to give such a peerless beauty away to be a favored concubine. But everything is for the future of the Ning family." He lifted the Rakshasa mandarin duck crutch and stabbed it at Mu Yan's dantian. However, at this moment, Yin Yuanyi finally spoke. "Wait a minute." He slowly walked down the steps in front of the Chuya Palace. The corners of his mouth hold a lofty smile as he arrives in front of Mayan, looking down at her. "Woman, you should know very well that I am the only one who can save you now." He slowly squatted down. With a burning finger, he clasped Mu Yan's chin and forced her to come closer to him. His fingertips touched the girl's delicate skin. Yin Yuanyi's heart swayed again. He could hardly suppress the burning desire in his eyes. He said in a slightly hoarse voice, word by word, "Beg me. Beg me to pamper you, and I will let you and the others live. How about it?" Mu Yan's face was pale because of the exhaustion of spiritual power. However, those peach blossom eyes became more and more translucent, as if they were twinkling stars in the pitch-black night sky. Yin Yuanyi's breathing was slightly heavy. Holding the girl's soft and delicate chin, he slowly bent down, wanting to kiss her first. No. Why was it just a kiss? So what if he directly took her in front of everyone? He was the young master of the Nether Realm. What in the world didn't belong to him? However, he hadn't tasted the girl's fragrance. A sharp pain came from his abdomen. Yin Yuanyi snorted and flung Mu Yan away. Inch by inch, his face turned pale. He lowered his head and looked at his stomach in disbelief. Unbeknownst to him, a sparkling and translucent longsword had appeared there, directly piercing through his dantian. "Young master." Young master, are you okay? Yan Liji and the guards were scared out of their wits, and they rushed over in a panic. At the side, Ning Kunshan's expression also changed drastically. His eyes were filled with terror. He's sure that the spiritual power within Mayan's body was completely devoured by him just now. This girl definitely didn't have the slightest bit of lethality right now. But why? How could she still injure young Master Yin? At the thought of Yin Yuani's death on the floating island, in the Ning family, Ning Kunshan felt like the world was falling apart. Mayan absent-mindedly opens her eyes. She could vaguely see a handsome face. That pair of eyes that were as black as ink had always been calm and indifferent, like an ancient well without ripples. But at this moment, he couldn't suppress his panic and heartache. Mu Yan blinked lightly and called out in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Uncle." Luo Yunxiao closes his eyes. The hand hanging at his side is clenched into a fist until his nails are deeply embedded in his palm. Blood drips. He can use that little bit of pain to force his surging killing intent to calm down and stop the trembling of his body. Ever since he was young, he was obviously more favored by his father and the people behind the scenes. He was clearly the publicly acknowledged successor of the Nether Realm. However, the servants always favored Luo Yunxiao in private. Those young girls, no matter how much respect they showed him on the surface. When his eyes were filled with adoration and infatuation, they were always directed at Luo Yunxiao. These people thought that they were being secretive. But how could Yin Yuani not know? His hatred towards Luo Yunxiao accumulated little by little, to the point of madness. He didn't hesitate to send these servants who loved Luo Yunxiao to hell. Let them beg for death but be unable to. Luo Yunxiao, that bastard, also crawled back from hell anyway. Chapter 3689. Dirty, dark, disgusting. Even Imperial Father and Imperial Mother feared him. Since these servants liked to accompany him so much, they should stay in this miserable hell and never be reincarnated. Yin Wuji and Fu Yushu obviously knew what he had done. But Yin Wuji chose to ignore it. Fu Yushu tried to persuade him. But after Yin Yuani cried that Luo Yunxiao had ordered the servants to harm him, he didn't say anything else. So all the servants and officials of the Nether Realm knew about it. There was no future for them to be nice to Luo Yunxiao, the First Highness. They might even die a horrible death and implicate their whole families. Then, gradually, no one dared to help Luo Yunxiao anymore. No one would show an infatuated look at Luo Yunxiao's face. The First Highness of the Nether Realm became a taboo. Everyone treated him as if he didn't exist and even hated him. Yin Yuani only felt comfortable. Later, Luo Yunxiao ignited the Dark Yin Holy Flame and obtained the inheritance of the Nether Holy Spirit. He even became the fiancé of the Demon Princess. Yin Yuani didn't panic or resent it. Because he knew clearly that so what if Luo Yunxiao got all this? As long as Yin Yuani wanted it, Luo Yunxiao must spit out everything and give it all to him. Thinking of this, Yin Yuani took a deep breath. Because he saw the attention and love of others for Luo Yunxiao, his twisted face gradually returned to normal. The corners of his mouth even curled up into a horrifying arc. Go, bring that woman to this young master. Yin Yuani winked at the leader of his guards. The leader of the guards showed a little hesitation on his face. They were very clear about the strength of the First Highness. If he really wanted to go against the young master, he, a Peak Xian immortal, might not be a match for the First Highness. Seeing the hesitation of the leader of the guards, Yin Yuani was furious. Didn't you hear my order? Are you still afraid of that trash Luo Yunxiao? Oh, do you think Luo Yunxiao has the guts to refuse the woman I want? the leader of the guards didn't have time to speak. Yan Liji immediately smiled flatteringly and said, "Young master, there's no need to trouble Lord Jiang. I'll go and bring them over for you." As he spoke, he flashed a fawning smile at the leader of the guards. Yin Yuan's anger turned into joy. Yan Liji immediately strode toward the two people who were sitting cross-legged. The expulsion of the dark Yin holy flame had reached a critical moment. This can be seen from the black flame mark that flashes from time to time between Mayan's eyebrows. Yan Liji didn't care about that. He goes to Mayan's side and says with a bit of disdain and carelessness, "Your Highness, I'm sorry. Our young master has taken a fancy to this Miss June Mayan. The Ning family has already offered her to our young master, and young master has decided to take her as a concubine. Now, young master has ordered me to bring her to his side. After all, it is improper for men and women to touch each other. His First Highness's attitude towards young master's beloved concubine is so ambiguous and intimate. If word of this gets out, it won't be good, right? Your Highness has declared righteousness. I believe you won't blame me for bringing Miss June to young master's side, right?" With that, Yan Liji reached out to grab Mu Yan's hand and pull her up. However, just as he was about to move, the man in front of him suddenly opened his eyes. Those dark eyes were always calm and indifferent in the past. It was like a tranquil sea without any waves. There were no waves, and it was unwilling to fight. Chapter 3690. But at this moment, the darkness suddenly turned into a bottomless abyss. Bone-chilling cold. Azure flame. Their anxiety combined and transformed into the strongest killing intent and warning. Yan Liji shuddered all over. Cold sweat slid down his forehead uncontrollably. His back was already wet with sweat. He stood there stiffly for a long time before he suddenly exhaled and gasped for breath. The fear of his internal organs and soul being crushed at any moment made him so scared that he even forgot to breathe. Was this really the First Highness who had a weak sense of existence and could be bullied by anyone in the nether realm? Why did he feel that he was facing a murderous Azura from hell? "Yan Liji, what are you doing?" Seeing that he didn't move, Yin Yuan's face suddenly darkened and he snapped, "Bring that bitch to this young master." Yan Liji suddenly came back to himself. His face suddenly turned blue and white. He was afraid of Luo Yunxiao at this time, but he was even more afraid of Yin Yuan's cruel and angry hunger. Taking a deep breath, Yan Liji gritted his teeth and said, Your Highness, why are you looking at me like this? This woman is the young master's concubine, and the young master is the future heir of the nether realm. I dare not disobey his orders, but you also have to obey, right?" He glanced at June Mayan. The black mark of the dark Yin holy flame on her forehead was getting brighter and brighter. Obviously, the expulsion would be successful soon. But if he really waited until the expulsion was successful and then brought her to Yin Yuan, he would be in serious trouble. Thinking of this, Yan Liji suddenly made up his mind. He bent down to grab Mayan's arm and was about to pull her up. He shouted fiercely, "Your Highness, even if you want to expel the dark Yin holy flame, it should be the young master who does it. Your identity is not legitimate, and you are so close to the young master's concubine. Even if the First Highness can't punish you, Miss June's chastity will be ruined. At that time, it is unknown whether she will end up in a pig cage or not." Before he finished speaking, Yan Liji suddenly felt a cold light flash in front of his eyes. Then, an arm splashed with blood flew in front of him. Yan Liji feels that the sinking force that was originally pulling Mayan has disappeared. What replaced it was a sharp pain that came after he realized it. Ah! Yan Liji clutched his severed arm and fell to the ground, letting out a blood-curdling scream. In front of him was Luo Yunxiao, who slowly stood up with a long sword in her hand. His appearance was like an orchid, a jade tree, unparalleled in the world. But his expression was bone-chilling, like an azura from hell. His voice was clear and pleasant to listen to, filling the ears and causing one to be intoxicated. However, the words that came out of his mouth were like the voice of a ferocious ghost, causing one's body and soul to tremble uncontrollably. Even though Yan Liji was in excruciating pain, he could still feel those voices drilling into his ears like ice-cold venomous snakes. "Don't touch her with your dirty hands." This change caused the entire courtyard in front of Chuya Palace to sink into a strange silence. Only Yan Liji's miserable howls echoed in everyone's ears. Luo Yunxiao's eyes fell on Yin Yuanyi's face. Her eyes were as calm as still water. Yin Yuanyi's face turned pale. The fear and memories from a long time ago surged up like a tide at this moment. He suppressed the fear in his heart and shouted, Luo Yunxiao, how dare you hurt my people? How dare you?" Chapter 3691. Luo Yunxiao stepped forward with a sword in her hand. The leader of the guards quickly stepped forward and blocked Luo Yunxiao's way. The rest of Yin Yuanyi's guards also spread out and surrounded Luo Yunxiao. His eyes met with a pair of bottomless black eyes. The guard leader couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He forced himself to calm down and said, "Your First Highness, what are you doing? The young lord is your younger brother and the future successor of the Nether Domain. Have you forgotten the promise you made in front of the Region Lord and Empress Dark?" Luo Yunxiao looked at Yin Yuanyi expressionlessly. His voice was still calm and indifferent, as if there were no fluctuations in his emotions. "You used the dark Yin holy flame to deal with her." After a pause, he asked again, "You used the dark Yin holy flame that you took from me to deal with her?" Mu Yan wakes up from Qiu and Qi Huang's worried calls. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw this scene. That was what he heard. Mayan stares blankly at Luo Yunxiao's back. For a moment, she's somewhat dumbfounded. Ever since she was brought back to Chuya Palace by Ning Kunshan, she had been trying to stall for time. But she didn't expect that the one who came first wasn't Di Mingju, but youngest martial uncle. Why would junior martial uncle come to the Ning family? Moreover, he had just said, "You used the dark Yin holy flame that you took from me to deal with her." "Qi Huang, what does little martial uncle mean?" Qi Huang's face was ashen. After a long while, he finally gritted his teeth and said, "What else could it mean? The dark Yin sacred flame was ignited by that pretty boy Luo Yunxiao in the river of forgetfulness. I almost died back then." There was one more thing that Qi Huang did not say. Back then, Luo Yunxiao had almost died. He was also implicated by that detestable gigolo and was in so much pain that he hovered between life and death. It was Mayan zither that eased his pain and also saved Luo Yunxiao from the edge of life and death. Mu Yan whispered, "Yin Yuanyi took away the dark Yin holy flame that youngest martial uncle refined. How did you take it away?" She asked, but a scene from a long time ago had already appeared in her mind. Little martial uncle suddenly came back, but he was seriously injured. His back was a bloody mess. But what was more serious was the damage to his divine soul. He had spent a great deal of effort to barely heal him. Could it be that time? Qi Huang lightly snorted. According to the relevant ancient records of the Nether Realm, activating the Dark Yin sacred flame is equivalent to obtaining the inheritance of the sacred spirit. The inheritance of the sacred spirit is directly engraved on a person's body using a special rune. In order to dig it out and transfer it, the inheritor had to be willing to bear the heart-gouging and bone-gnawing pain, having the entire rune pattern scraped away from his body while he was still alive, and even cutting off the connection between his divine soul and the inheritance of the sacred spirit. That pain. He pauses, then coldly says, that kind of pain, is probably 100 times, 1,000 times more painful than when you made the Tian Imo Chin recognize you as its master. Mu Yan's face suddenly darkened, and a faint baleful aura appeared between her brows. How dare he bully the young martial uncle of the Xiaoyao sect? How dare they let their celestial little martial uncle suffer such torture? Very good, Yin Yuani, you're going to die today. Humph. Qi Huang mocked, isn't all of this the pretty boy's fault? Who asked him to be so stupid? Others wanted to take away the Holy Spirit inheritance from him, and he just obediently let them take it away. You even caused this noble one to have to follow you. Qi Huang didn't say anything else after that. Mu Yan already had some guesses about the connection between Qi Huang and little martial uncle. But all of her guesses were hazy and vague. The correct chapter of Alluring Enchantress of the Magic Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby's black-bellied father will continue to be updated on the hand-to-play bar. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the hand-to-play bar. Like Alluring Enchantress of the Magic Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby's black-bellied father, please collect. Chapter 3692. In reality, up until now, even Qi Huang was still confused. He couldn't explain why he had a soul connection with that pretty boy, Luo Yunxiao. But he was definitely a fool, an idiot, and an idiot. The dark Yin holy flame, which he had risked his life to cultivate, was taken away just like that. Qi Huang only bore 30 to 50% of the pain for Luo Yunxiao, but it was already unbearable for him. It could be imagined what kind of inhuman torture Luo Yunxiao had endured when the inheritance of the Netherworld Holy Spirit was taken away. But perhaps that torture was not the most unbearable for Luo Yunxiao. What made him the most unbearable, even to the point of mental collapse? Yin Yuani used the dark Yin holy flame, which he had taken from him, to hurt Mayan. To hurt the woman he was willing to sacrifice everything to protect. Qi Huang lowered his eyes slightly, revealing a sarcastic expression. But there was a touch of desolation and sorrow in his eyes. On the other side, Yin Yuani, who heard Luo Yunxiao's question, was stunned at first. Then he noticed that his personal guard, and even the Ning family all looked at him. He panicked. Luo Yunxiao, shut the hell up, she yelled in fury. The dark Yin holy flame is something that I, young master, painstakingly cultivated. The inheritance of the Netherworld Holy Spirit also belongs to me alone. What does it have to do with you, a lowly bastard, a rat who can't see the light? Luo Yunxiao chuckled in a low voice. He was already incomparably handsome and gentle like jade. At this time, when he smiled, it was really like the sun shining on a snow-covered mountaintop, dazzling people. But such a peerless face, such a seductive smile, the smile did not reach his eyes at all. In his eyes, there was only a bone-chilling coldness and undisguised killing intent. Yin Yuani, I gave you what I gave you willingly. But if I don't want to, I can take it back at any time. Yin Yuani, do you believe me? As soon as the voice fell, Luo Yunxiao's tall figure had disappeared. An indescribable panic rose in Yin Yuani's heart. He almost shouted hysterically, "Stop him, stop him. No, kill him. Kill him for me. If anything happens, I'll take care of it. I order you to kill him right now." Yin Yuani's guards were ready, and half of them surrounded Yin Yuani to protect him. The other half charged forward without hesitation, wanting to kill Luo Yunxiao. This battle was no longer something that the people present could see clearly. Apart from Mayan, only Ning Kunchen can vaguely capture Luo Yunxiao's figure. But before he could see the man's movements clearly, a soundless sword chi suddenly streaked across the underground palace of the Ning family. A cold sword shook the 9 provinces. The sword made no sound, and heaven and earth resonated. Buzz buzz buzz. Violent quakes came from every corner of the Ning family's underground palace. Chapter 3693. Mu Yan looked at the huge hole above, the blue sky, the white clouds, and the bright sun. She was stunned. What happened just now? Did youngest martial uncle pierce through the Ning family's underground palace with one strike? No, it was not a big deal. If she used all her strength, it was not impossible to pierce through. But youngest martial uncle just made one strike, right? Moreover, it was done in an extremely casual manner, as if it were chopping vegetables. It was an effortless slash. This sword not only pierced through the Ning family's underground palace. It also knocked down half of Yin Yuan's guards. More than a dozen Xian immortals. As if he was chopping vegetables, he silently fell to the ground without the slightest bit of resistance. Mu Yan was shocked for a long time, and then her eyes slowly fell on Luo Yunxiao. She frowned in confusion. Was youngest martial uncle so strong before? On the cultivation continent, youngest martial uncle had fought with Ning Su, who was a Xian immortal. At that time, youngest martial uncle obviously had the upper hand. But he was a little timid, as if he was afraid to show his full strength. And even if he used all his strength, he could never make such a shocking strike. Did youngest martial uncle become stronger? Or, at this moment, youngest martial uncle was not in his normal state. But she had to admit that youngest martial uncle was so handsome. She was so envious of him. In the Xiaoyao sect, only Mu Yan and Yun Ruhan were sword cultivators. Since her strength had improved by leaps and bounds on the floating island, Mu Yan had always thought that her swordsmanship was improving little by little. But now, seeing youngest martial uncle's one strike. Only now did she realize how far away her attainments in the sword Dao were from the great perfection realm. These days, she was complacent about the rapid growth of her cultivation, and the number of her natal swords increased from 1 to 8. She was getting closer and closer to the heavenly tribulation. But in fact, her swordsmanship was not advancing, but regressing. Now, the distance between her and youngest martial uncle was getting farther and farther. How long had it been since her heart of sword was consolidated and broken through? How long had it been since her realm stopped at the 4th level? She still had a long way to go if she wanted to become a true powerhouse and protect her loved ones. Seeing that Luo Yunxiao had killed half of his guards with just one strike, he felt a chill run down his spine. Yin Yuan finally panicked. He desperately pushed the guards beside him forward and screamed, "Stop him, quickly stop him." She rushed to Ning Fuxing's side, grabbed him, and dragged him in front of her. Then, she screamed, "Take me to the teleportation formation. Take me to the teleportation formation. I want to go back to the Shushan continent, do you hear me?" Ning Fuxing's face was pale. He was hiding from the sunlight shining through the hole. Pulled by Yin Yuan, it was immediately exposed to the sunlight. There was no burning sensation, nor was there any obvious pain. However, Ning Fuxing could clearly feel his life slipping away bit by bit under the sunlight. It was as if countless terrifying images flashed before his eyes. He hurriedly took out the elixir and swallowed it. If the Ning family wanted to go out for a short period of time, they had to take a special, age-retaining pill. Otherwise, they would age quickly and become delirious under the sunlight. However, before he could swallow the elixir, Yin Yuan slapped him hard in the face. "I want you to bring me to the teleportation array immediately, do you hear me?" As he roared, he gnashed his teeth and swore in his heart. When he returned to the Shushan continent, he would tell his father and mother that Luo Yunxiao, that bastard, was going to kill him again. Chapter 3694. His father and mother will never let him go. Luo Yunxiao, you're going to die, ha ha ha. However, Ning Fuxing's next words make his ferocious smile freeze on his face. Young Master Yin, it will take at least 1 month for the transmission array to be reactivated through the space barrier. Now, it can't be used yet. What did you say? Yin Yuanyi grabs Ning Fuxing's neck fiercely and roars hysterically, Bastard, I dare you to say it again. Ning Fuxing's eyes bulge and his face turns purple. He looks at Ning Kunshan with a pleading look. But Ning Kunshan avoids it. Yin Yuanyi is mad. As he hears the screams of his guards behind him, more panic and resentment surges in his heart. A ball of black flame suddenly sprang up from his palm, directly burning Ning Fuxing's neck along with the action of grabbing it. Ning Fuxing immediately let out a blood-curdling scream and fainted. Under the sun, his middle-aged face is covered with wrinkles in an instant. He looks so old as if he will die at any time. Yin Yuanyi makes up his mind and suddenly pounces on Mayan. Ningyu, who is watching the battle, can't help shouting, Mayan, be careful. Luo Yunxiao, who is in front of him, pauses and ignores the sword of the leader of the guards. He quickly turns around and rushes to Mayan. Mayan squints slightly. Looking at Yin Yuanyi who is rushing over, she can't help but smile grimly. Does he think I'm a pushover that can be bullied at will? Raising his hand, the Tian Mo Qin appears in his palm. The melodious sound of the qin is accompanied by the whistling cold wind. Yin Yuanyi sees that he is getting closer and closer to his target. He is about to catch the bitch and threaten Luo Yunxiao to stop. Suddenly, he feels a cold light flashing and countless sword qi gathering from all directions. Ha! Yin Yuanyi sneers. He doesn't care about the sword qi released by a little golden immortal at all. He doesn't even try to block it. He just lets the sword qi fall on his robe and rushes directly to Mayan. He suddenly stretches out his hand with the dark yin holy flame and clasps the girl's slender white neck. In other words, he had grasped Luo Yunxiao's lifeline. A hideous smile appeared on Yin Yuanyi's face. However, in the next moment, his expression changed abruptly. This was because the figure in his hand suddenly disappeared like a phantom. Behind him, a silent killing intent penetrated his body. "Ah, dash!" Yin Yuanyi screamed, his face twisted. His robe was almost invulnerable. But Mayan's sword is a clone of the Tian Mo Qin. After experiencing the Tian Mo Qin several restorations, it can be said to be invincible. Therefore, the 7 absolute swords easily pierced into Yin Yuanyi's body. The tip of the sword was also coated with the deadly poison, death-stealing Yama, and golden silkworm goo. Of course, the poison and the goo couldn't kill Yin Yuanyi. However, it caused his entire body to spasm in pain. Especially the golden silkworm goo that entered his body and began to gnaw at his fragile internal organs. Yin Yuanyi couldn't help but groan in pain. He held the 7 ultimate sword that had pierced through his body. His face contorted as he pulled out the sword. Then, he turned around with an incomparably swift movement. The hand that was raised has turned into a burning flame, and the nails are black hooked claws. The Enchantress of the Enchantress, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect it. Chapter 3695. Yin Yuanyi's eyes were bloodshot as if he had gone mad. He reached out to grab Mu Yan's heart. Puchi. The nails pierced through the flesh, and blood splattered everywhere. But Mu Yan doesn't feel the slightest pain. In front of her, a tall figure was standing quietly, shielding her behind him. There was a long gash on his thin green robe. Under the torn clothes, his back was straight, but one could see the exposed skin and flesh, so deep that bones could be seen. His green robe was already soaked in blood. But the figure didn't even shake. Even when he was under Yin Yuan's attack, he suddenly raised his sword and pierced a guard's throat. Mu Yan's lips move. For a moment, he felt that his throat was dry, and he was unable to speak. She wanted to ask, youngest martial uncle, why? She wanted to ask, youngest martial uncle, just to save a martial nephew, you don't even care about your life. But when the words reached his mouth, not a single sound came out. In the depths of his heart, a vague thought emerged. But he was quickly slapped back by her. The situation was critical, and it was not the time to let one's imagination run wild. Little martial uncle, you're injured. Mu Yan steps forward, wanting to give Luo Yunxiao a healing elixir. He said coldly, step back, don't come near me. But don't stay too far away from me. Luo Yunxiao's voice was cold and harsh, which was rarely seen. But Mu Yan didn't think too much about it. Without hesitation, she retreats several meters away, then takes the Tian Imo Qin and sits down cross-legged. The wound on Luo Yunxiao's back healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, Yin Yuan's claw in Luo Yunxiao's chest was pulled out by his wrist. The long black nails cut through the flesh. Watching from the side, Mu Yan couldn't help but feel the pain. However, Luo Yunxiao didn't seem to notice it at all, and she didn't even frown. Yin Yuan's guards rushed over, trying to save their young master. Luo Yunxiao was seriously injured, but her right hand was still controlling Yin Yuan. However, he was able to kill each of the guards with a swing of his sword. In the end, the ground in front of Chuya Palace was filled with the corpses of Xian immortal guards. Blood flowed like a river. Only Yan Lizhi, who had lost his arm, and the leader of the guards were still alive. Yin Yuan screamed and struggled desperately. Luo Yunxiao, are you rebelling? If you dare to lay a hand on me, my father and the people behind the scenes will never let you off. Ah! With a cracking sound, Yin Yuan's wrist was broken. Luo Yunxiao's eyes were cold as he turned around and threw the long sword in his hand. The long sword whistled and immediately split into three in the air. The leader of the guards, who had silently rushed over to launch a sneak attack, could not even see the trajectory of the long sword flying towards him. He only felt a sharp pain in his shoulder and abdomen. Then, he was ruthlessly nailed to the tree. Luo Yunxiao turned around and looked at Yin Yuan expressionlessly. Yin Yuan's face was finally filled with panic and fear. Luo Yunxiao, what are you going to do? Do you remember what you promised Imperial Father and Imperial Mother? You swore that you would never hurt me again, and you would never let your own flesh and blood kill each other ever again. Mu Yan, who hears this from behind, is simply shocked by his shamelessness. Chapter 3696. Oh, I remember, your parents are even more shameless than you. You guys are really shamelessly close like a family. Through Qi Huang's narration, plus what she had seen and heard from Luo Yunxiao, Mu Yan has already learned about her youngest uncle's life. It's not a big deal. Isn't it just a pair of biased parents who love their youngest son? No matter what youngest uncle got, he must give it to his youngest son. Otherwise, it will be treason. Even the dark Yin holy flame that youngest uncle cultivated by a narrow escape must be given to his youngest son. Even if youngest uncle was stripped of the dark Yin holy flame, he may be in great pain. This was no longer just favoritism, it was pure shamelessness. Yin Yuan's face is ferocious, and he says angrily, bitch, you know nothing. You don't understand what a dirty thing Luo Yunxiao is. He shouldn't exist in this world, he hasn't finished his words yet. Mu Yan's figure suddenly disappears. The next moment, she slaps Yin Yuan hard in the face. He sees stars and blood oozes from the corner of his mouth. Yin Yuan is completely stunned. He stares at Mu Yen incredulously and screams, "Bitch, how dare you hit me?" Slap 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 slap. Countless slaps fall on Yin Yuan's face like a series of thunder. Because he is restrained by Luo Yunxiao, he can't use his immortal power. Yin Yuan is now just a relatively strong mortal body. And Mu Yan didn't slap him with her own hands. She feels that touching this garbage hurts her hands. She uses a miniature version of the 7 supreme swords. It is guaranteed to be invincible and unbreakable. Not to mention that Yin Yuan can't use his spiritual power now, even if he can. Mu Yan will definitely hit him until his parents don't recognize him. After a round of slaps, Yin Yuan's head immediately swells like a pig's head. His eyes are almost covered by his swollen eyelids, and he can't see. Even a few of his teeth were loose from the beating. Mu Yan takes back the 7 supreme swords, shakes her hand, and sneers, "Idiot, I hit you." As she spoke, she glared at Luo Yunxiao and said with slight disappointment, "Young martial uncle, you're usually ruthless and merciless when you teach us a lesson, yet why are you so merciful to this stupid and useless weakling? What happened to father and mother?" There were many beasts in the world who were worse than pigs and dogs, who were not worthy of being a father or a mother. Why do you care about them? In this world, there are naturally people who treat you as a true family member. Why do you have to be so stubbornly loyal to those who hurt you? A smile flashed across Luo Yunxiao's eyes. Looking at the young girl's angry face, the coldness, brutality, and killing intent in his heart slowly dissipated. But he did not let his emotions show. It only took an instant for it to completely vanish. He looked at Yin Yuan coldly and said indifferently, "As I said, I can give you my things, and I can take them back." Yin Yuan's swollen eyes suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. He didn't believe that Luo Yunxiao would dare to do that. Luo Yunxiao clearly obeyed imperial father and imperial mother, not daring to disobey them. He wouldn't dare, he absolutely wouldn't dare to hurt himself. Yes, he wouldn't dare. However, the next moment, a piercing pain surged from every inch of his meridians and dantian. Yin Yuan felt that it was his own power. Chapter 3697. Yin Yuan felt that it was his own power. The powerful dark Yin holy flame, which made him excited and fascinated, was being extracted from his body little by little. Yin Yuan's face was full of horror and despair. How dare Luo Yunxiao? How dare he do this to himself? Moreover, he had clearly taken the dark Yin holy flame from him. How could it be taken back again? No, no. Yin Yuan screamed loudly. He even cried and begged, "No, the dark Yin holy flame is mine. It's mine. You can't take it away. Luo Yunxiao, it's mine. I beg you, brother, I beg you." Luo Yunxiao just looked at him and cried expressionlessly. There was no trace of emotion on his face. He could tolerate Yin Yuan taking anything away from him. It was what he owed him, what he owed the nether realm. But Yin Yuan shouldn't have hurt Mu Yen. Yin Yuan's screams became more and more miserable. And on his forehead, there seemed to be a black flower breaking through his skin, desperately trying to drill out. However, at this moment, a dark red rune suddenly appeared on Yin Yuan's rune. Then it suddenly flew towards Luo Yunxiao, piercing between his eyebrows. Luo Yunxiao's whole body flew out, fell to the ground, and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Young martial uncle!" Mu Yen screamed and rushed over. Then she heard a cold and majestic voice in the air. "Evil creature! I left this restriction just in case you hurt her again. I didn't expect that you would be worse than an animal. You really dared to hurt your brother again. Luo Yunxiao, you really disappointed me. Hurry back to the Nether Realm to accept your punishment. As the voice resounded, Yin Yuan's body slowly floated in the air. The black flower on his forehead, which seemed to break through his skin at any time, gradually disappeared. Instead, the unique rune flickered and wrapped Yin Yuan's whole body. Soon, the wounds on Yin Yuan's face and body were all healed. He slowly landed on the ground, raised his intact hand and looked at it. He was ecstatic. It's father. Ha! I knew that Imperial Father would absolutely not allow me to be killed by that bastard, Luo Yunxiao. Ha ha ha, not only did father heal my wounds, he even lent his power to me temporarily. As soon as Yin Yuan's feet touched the ground, he couldn't wait to throw a punch. There was a loud bang. An underground palace of the Ning family was directly reduced to ruins. The smile on Yin Yuan's face grew wilder and wilder. He walked towards Luo Yunxiao step by step, his eyes flickering with extreme hatred and brutality. Luo Yunxiao, you son of a bitch. You've finally fallen into my hands today. How did you treat me just now? I'm going to pay you back 1,000 times over. As he spoke, Yin Yuan punched out. Luo Yunxiao wanted to dodge. However, a red light immediately appeared on his body and turned into countless silk threads that tightly bound his body. This was no ordinary binding. It was like a restriction that had been placed in Luo Yunxiao's body a long time ago. As long as this restriction was activated, he would not have the slightest ability to resist. Bang! The punch landed on Luo Yunxiao's body. The destructive power that could cause a palace to collapse directly smashed into Luo Yunxiao's body. It made him spit out another mouthful of blood. Chapter 3698. His abdomen is sunken in. Yin Yuan sees the uncontrollable pain on his face, and his eyes turn red with excitement. He took a step forward, intending to throw another punch. How can Mayan allow him to hurt little martial uncle like this? She doesn't think about it and jumps forward. The Tian Mo Qin blocks Yin Yuan's attack. This is a blow from a venerable immortal. The Tian Mo Qin can't be broken. But Mayan feels as if her internal organs have been ruthlessly smashed and stirred. Her body suddenly flies out, and she spits out a mouthful of blood. Mayan. Luo Yunxiao sees this scene, and his eyes are about to split open. He struggles desperately to stand up. But the red line on his body firmly binds him, making him unable to move. Yin Yuan is very dissatisfied that his torture of Luo Yunxiao has been interrupted. He sneers, and is about to punch for the third time. But Mayan, who has been flying upside down in the air, suddenly takes a step and flies back. The 7 absolute swords split into 7, blocking Yin Yuan. At the same time, the Tian Mo Qin plays the divine hand weaves the heavens, blocking Yin Yuan's action. Ah! A scream overflows from Mayan's mouth. Her whole body lightly falls from the air, and blood gushes out of her mouth and nose. Mayan! Mayan, how are you? Ningyu screams and wants to rush over, but Ning Kunshan smiles and holds her down. Luo Yunxiao doesn't care about the comfort of the red energy, and desperately crawls towards Mayan. The red energy cuts his flesh inch by inch, and even his bones. But he doesn't seem to feel it. At this moment, there is only the girl in his eyes that he swore to protect with his life. Not only did he not protect her. Instead, he made her die trying to protect him. At this moment, Luo Yunxiao only feels that something in his mind has broken. His eyes turn blood-red little by little. His bloody hands, cut by the restriction, crawl on the ground, approaching Mayan little by little. A thought is getting clearer and clearer in his mind. Destroy all of this. Destroy everything in this world that will hurt Mayan. Yun sees Luo Yunxiao's miserable appearance, tears streaming down her face. He stopped attacking with great interest. He slowly walks forward and grabs Mu Yan's hair, forcing her to raise her head. Luo Yunxiao, it seems like your love for this woman is unforgettable. You didn't even show such an expression when you were about to die. When the Netherworld Holy Spirit's inheritance was taken away, I didn't see you shed a single tear. But now, you're crying over a woman. Hehe, Luo Yunxiao, do you want me to let this woman go? Kneel down and beg me. Luo Yunxiao closed her eyes and knelt down to Yun without hesitation. I beg you, let Mu Yan go. Ha 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 ha. Yun burst out laughing. The expression on his face was indescribably contorted. He had always wanted to see Luo Yunxiao like a stray dog. However, when the maidservant beside him was killed, he did not have any mood swings. When the Netherworld Holy Spirit's inheritance was taken away, he didn't have any interest in it. When he was despised by his imperial father and imperial mother, he didn't have any interest. He's obviously a pitiful worm with nothing, an existence that should be hated and disliked by everyone. But he always keeps his back straight, revealing an awe-inspiring and inviolable expression. Why? Chapter 3699. Why didn't that bastard Luo Yunxiao get trampled into the mud? Why didn't he beg and cry to him? And now, Yun finally got what he wanted. He finally saw Luo Yunxiao kneeling in front of him like a dog, crying and begging for mercy. He longed for him to give him a little mercy and charity. Ha 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 ha, Luo Yunxiao, you deserve this. Do you want me to let this woman go? But I won't. The expression on Yun's face became more and more ferocious and excited. He tore off Luo Yunxiao's clothes that Mu Yan was wearing. He reached out and clasped Mu Yan's chin. Not only will I not let her go, but I will also have her in front of you. Luo Yunxiao, I want you to know that whether you want it or not, you can't get it. Luo Yunxiao suddenly stood up and roared, Yun, don't you dare. Clouds of bloody mist burst out of his body. Even his unparalleled handsome face was riddled with holes by the restriction at this moment. It was too horrible to look at. At this moment, he was no longer the young Master Yunxiao, who was as beautiful as a jade. He was a Shura ghost who walked out of hell step by step, stepping on red lotus fire, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Yun's face showed a touch of horror and fear. But soon, the red energy lines on Luo Yunxiao's body lit up. His fragile body could no longer support him and fell to the ground. Yun breathed a long sigh of relief. Then he couldn't help but spit, and his grinning eyes fell on Mu Yan's face again. A peerless beauty. That was what moved him in the first place. But what made Yun more excited was that he knew how angry and mad he would be if he played with his beloved woman in front of Luo Yunxiao. His mother had always told him to avoid Luo Yunxiao and not to make him angry. It was obvious that Empress Mother still had feelings for this son of a bitch. But why? His father and mother, everything in the nether realm should be his. Luo Yunxiao, that monster who was neither human nor ghost, was not qualified to have everything in the world. He should die without a burial place, fall into hell forever, and be consigned to eternal damnation. Yun's fingers pinched Mu Yan's face tightly, making a cracking sound. Because of the pain, Mayan wakes up from her coma. Looking into her eyes, Yun's smile became more and more excited. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to have fun with a dead body. Now that you've woken up, we can put on a good show. Luo Yunxiao, you must open your eyes wide and watch how this young master takes your woman. Yun and Mu Yan didn't notice. Luo Yunxiao's crimson eyes gradually turned black. Bit by bit, it was as if it wanted to infect his eyes and soul. However, at such a moment, which should have been filled with grief, despair, and rage, Mu Yan looks at Yin Yuan's smug smile and slowly raises the corner of her mouth. It was a look of looking at a dead person or an idiot. Contempt, disdain. There was also a thick murderous aura that wanted to kill him. Yin Yuan suddenly felt very unhappy. He frowned and sneered, "Bitch, what are you laughing at? Do you think anyone will come to save you now?" Mu Yan moved her cracked and pale lips and said word by word, "I'm laughing at how miserable your death will be." Chapter 3700. Do you think that Luo Yunxiao, who can't even protect herself now, can save you? In this world, no one can save you. The 5 fingers on her chin suddenly tighten. There's a sharp pain in her bones. But the smile on Mayan's face is even more gloomy and brilliant. Yin Yuan, when you fall into my fiancé's hands, don't cry too ugly. Your fiancé, ha 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 ha. Are you using your fiancé to scare this young lord? So your fiancé isn't Luo Yunxiao, then who is it? Could it be the prince of the Lan family empire on this floating island? Yin Yuan says this, simply convulsing with laughter. Don't you know that on this floating island, no matter how many people come, for this young lord, they are just ants that can be casually trampled to death. You expect these ants to save you and Luo Yunxiao, ha 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 ha. Slut, don't dream. You'd better think about how you're going to moan under this young lord's body, wail and beg for mercy. With that, Yin Yuan reaches out to pull her clothes. He doesn't forget to look at Luo Yunxiao with malicious excitement. However, at this moment, Yin Yuan hears a voice that he will never forget. Yin Yuan, do you want Ben Jun's fiancé to wail and beg for mercy under you? Yin Yuan is startled. He wonders if he's hallucinating. How did he hear Di Mingju's voice? Moreover, this voice is bone-chilling and eerie, as if it's coming from the depths of hell under the 9 serenities. Every word, every syllable seems to tear him into pieces, mince him into 1,000 pieces. Yin Yuan shakes his head. He secretly wonders if he's hallucinating because of Luo Yunxiao's stimulation. But when he looks up, he sees Yan Leji's frightened eyes turning white. He shakily raises his hand and points behind Yin Yuan. He stutters and vaguely shouts something, Di Jun. Jun. Young lord, it's Di Jun. Yin Yuan slowly and stiffly turns around. Then he meets a pair of bone-chilling blue eyes. Immediately after, there's a handsome face that seems to be carefully carved by the heavens. Like a god, like a born king. No one dared to look at his face or look into his eyes. The moment they saw him, they only wanted to kneel down and submit. Di Mingju. Yin Yuan screamed. The expression on his face was even more horrified and incredulous than when he saw Luo Yunxiao massacring his guards. Why is Di Mingju here? Shouldn't he be in the Shushan continent, in the polar domain? Why would it appear in a lower realm like the floating island? Before he could finish thinking about it, a voice suddenly rang in his head. Yin Yuan felt a sharp pain all over his body. Then, his body flew into the air and was smashed into the ground. Intense pain came from his limbs and bones. It was accompanied by the cracking sounds of bones all over his body. The power bestowed upon him by Yin Wuji, which had allowed him to sweep through everything in his path and destroy everything in his path, was actually completely suppressed at this moment. His body, along with the power that Yin Wuji had lent him, was firmly pressed to the ground. It was as if a hand was crushing him like crushing an ant, causing all the bones in his body to nearly shatter and making it hard for him to breathe. Yin Yuan was in so much pain that he wished he could immediately faint. but he couldn't even let out a groan. He fell to the ground like a puddle of mud, unable to move his hands and feet. Chapter 3701. He looks on helplessly as Deming-ju quickly walks in front of Mayan. He bent down and picked up the girl. Then, as if he was holding a rare treasure, he carefully, anxiously, painfully, and bewilderedly pulled the girl into his arms. Yun was going crazy. Wasn't June Mayan the stunning beauty that the Ning family offered to him? Wasn't he Luo Yunxiao's sweetheart? Aren't they the Shin musicians that everyone wants to kill? Why is it related to Deming-ju? And what did Deming-ju just say? Yun, do you want my fiancé to beg for mercy under your body? Fiancé. June Mayan is just a little golden immortal on the floating island. How could she be Deming-ju's fiancé? Mu Yan's eyes were hazy as he stared blankly at the man who had descended in front of him like a god. There was only one sentence in his mind: Deming-ju, I've finally waited for you. The strength that had been supporting her suddenly dissipated. A piercing pain came from all over his body. Mu Yan's body went soft. She couldn't hold on any longer and fell backwards. But she did not fall to the cold ground. Instead, she was pulled into a scorching and trembling embrace. Mu Yan. The Polar Domain's sovereign emperor, who had always been cold and aloof, would always let out such a panicked and distressed voice because of her. Mu Yan's heart feels like it's being pricked by needles, but there's also an indescribable sense of peace and sweetness in the pain. She reached out and hugged the man, buried her face in his chest, and directly complained. Deming-ju, they bullied me and young Marshal Uncle. There's no need for Mayan to expend the effort to narrate what just happened. Little Phoenix has already rushed out of the space with tears in his eyes. Choking with sobs, he tells Deming-ju everything that just happened. Especially those who bullied the beautiful sister. The little phoenix flapped its wings and pointed at them, not letting any of them go. Following little Phoenix's narration, Deming-ju's complexion becomes more and more gloomy, the look in his eyes becoming more and more bone-chilling. Everyone that was looked upon by the imperial monarch's icy cold eyes shivered, and they were terrified to the point of losing their souls. The more cowardly ones had already knelt on the ground with a thud. He shouted, "Emperor, spare me." Ning Kunshan unwaveringly stares at Deming-ju, almost unable to believe his own eyes. No, he couldn't believe what he was seeing more than Yun. Who is Deming-ju? That was the lofty and aloof Extreme Domain sovereign lord with unparalleled authority. Among the three sovereigns, Deming-ju has the highest cultivation and the youngest. Some time ago, it was rumored that he had already broken through and become the only immortal emperor in the Shushin continent. Such a supreme powerhouse. In the three realms, he could get whatever he wanted, and he could get whatever woman he wanted. How could it be? How could he be so gentle and protective towards a female cultivator from the lower realms like Mayan? His attitude didn't even seem like he was treating a beautiful concubine. Instead, he guarded the rare treasure in a humble and precious manner, as if he was afraid that it would slip away from his hands if he was not careful. And what did he hear Deming-ju say before? You want Ben-jun's fiancé to beg for mercy under your body. Fiancé. June Mayan is actually Polar Domain's monarch's fiancé. How was this possible? Ning Kunshan only felt a buzzing in his head, his body swayed, and he almost couldn't stand. Chapter 3702. Obviously, they only need to say a word from June Mayan, and they can get everything that they've been dreaming of. But now, would Mayan let them off? Would Defying let them go? It's over. Ning Kunshan's face kept trembling. There was only one word in his mind: it was over. No, it can't be over. He clenched his teeth tightly, and his turbid eyes were bloodshot. The Ning family would not be finished. He, Ning Kunshin, would not be finished. He still had the final trump card in his hand. God Monarch, this is a misunderstanding. Ning Kunshin shakily opens his mouth and tries to squeeze out a kind smile. I am Mayan's ancestor, how could I harm? He did not finish his sentence. Crackling sounds could be heard in his ears. Then, a sharp pain came from his internal organs. He didn't even have time to look down before a mist of blood exploded in front of his eyes, accompanied by scattered intestines. Ning Kunshin's eyes widened in disbelief, and his body collapsed powerlessly. Ning Fuxing, Ning Jiangwen, Ning Jinwu, and the others were just as miserable as him. Their bodies exploded. Blood flowed out, and his intestines and organs rolled on the ground. However, none of them died. They endured the pain of having their chests and stomachs cut open. Just like that, their eyes bulged out and their mouths were wide open as they struggled at death's door. Only Ning Zhongbai and Ning Yu were safe and sound. When an imperial lord was enraged, corpses would float for thousands of miles. Little Phoenix fiercely glared at the Ning family members who were wailing and groaning, and spat out a few mouthfuls of saliva. Serves you right for bullying my pretty sister. Don't you know that His Majesty cares about beautiful big sister the most? How dare you bully this beautiful sister? You're dead meat. Moreover, he would die an extremely miserable death. Not a single one could escape. Mayan swallows a healing elixir. Only then did his pale face slowly return to normal. By the time she opened her eyes, her fiancé had already brutally avenged her. None of the Ning family members were dead. At this moment, it was 100 times more painful than death. Mu Yan thinks of this group of people's shamelessness, cold-bloodedness, and selfishness, and her heart feels unspeakably carefree. But when he turns his head, he can't hide the heartache in Di Mingju's eyes. She could feel his body trembling uncontrollably because of fear. Mayan can't help but feel guilty. She reaches out and hugs him, softly saying, Di Mingju, don't worry, I'm fine. Di Mingju's lips move, wanting to roar at her, this is nothing. Only God knows how angry and panicked he was when he arrived and saw Mayan's disheveled clothes and bloodstains all over her body. He could barely suppress his crazy desire to kill and destroy. He wants to destroy everything except Mu Yan, including the floating island. However, when he saw the pale face of the girl in his arms and the trust in her eyes, Di Mingju still takes a deep breath, swallowing back the words that are on the tip of his tongue. He doesn't want Mayan to encounter any danger. But he can't keep Mu Yan by his side like he keeps a canary. Break her wings and lock her up in a luxurious and comfortable cage. Of course, it could isolate all the dangers. However, it was tantamount to depriving Mu Yan of the chance to experience wind and rain and grow. Mu Yan doesn't want that kind of life. She had said that she wanted to become stronger, to have the opportunity to protect everyone around her. She wants to have the qualifications to stand side by side with him one day. Di Mingju swallows back the sourness, pain, and endless worry in his heart along with the words that are on the tip of his tongue. Chapter 3703. He reaches out and pulls the girl into his arms again. Tightly, tightly. As if he can't wait to integrate her into his own flesh and blood. He won't stop her from spreading her wings and flying high. But that doesn't mean that he will let her fall into danger time and time again. June Mayan, do you remember what you promised me? Mayan stiffens. The hands holding his body suddenly tighten, and her voice is low, like an injured and frightened cub. Di Mingju, why did you only come now? I was really scared just now. I thought that both me and young Marshall uncle would die in Ian Yuani's hands. Fortunately, you came. It's not that I didn't care about my own safety, I believed that you would come to save me. Dimingju, you will always stay by my side, won't you? The anger on Dimingju's face is replaced by heartache and guilt in a flash. Even if he knows that this girl is trying to change the subject and pretend to be pitiful, Dimingju still can't help but want to obey her and spoil her. Don't be afraid, Yin Yin. I'm here, no one can hurt you. I will always stay by your side. You can do what you want. I will stay by your side. Protect you. Rely on you. Indulge and spoil you. Let you live the life you want to live. When you encounter a crisis that you can't get through, I will appear by your side. Let all the disasters and torments not be able to really hurt you. This is my promise to you as a husband, as a man who loves you. Mayan's eyes suddenly feel a little hot. She has never liked to cry or act spoiled. No matter how much she has suffered, she can easily forget it and let it be in the past. But at this moment, in the arms of the man she loves, listening to his gentle and doting words, all of a sudden, Mayan really wants to vent all of her grievances. All the dark sides that she has seen since she came to the Ning family. Yin Yuani's sudden appearance, caught unprepared. Ning Kunshin, Ning Fuxing's shamelessness. Betrayal and betrayal of her loved ones. Young Marshall uncle was injured because of her, on the verge of death because of her. Yin Yuani's humiliation. All the grievances and pain, she thought that she could ignore them, that she could bear them by herself. But at this moment, she suddenly realized something. It turned out to be such a warm and happy thing to be able to find someone who would accept her unconditionally, allowing her to show her weakness and vent her grievances. Mu Yan hugs Dimingju, burying her face deep in his chest. Dimingju doesn't know if she's crying. However, he felt a burst of heat and wetness in his chest. For a moment, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. It makes him wish that he could immediately dismember everything that had harmed Mayan. He is at a loss as to what to do. He can only tightly hold the girl in his arms while hoarsely saying, "Yen Yen, I'm sorry, I came late. I shouldn't have left your side." Mu Yan pushes him away, revealing a bright smile on her face. Although her eyes were a little red, there were no tears. Dimingju stares blankly. Mayan smiles and says, "Dimingju, are you angry now? Don't be mad at me, okay?" The young girl smiled like a flower. Hearing this, she acted like a spoiled child and begged, revealing a side of her that she would never show in front of others. No matter how angry she is, she can't let it out. Dimingju couldn't help but grit his teeth and pinch her face. "Jun Mayan, you're relying on the fact that Ben Jun can't do anything to you." Chapter 3704. Mu Yan's smile becomes brighter, but she immediately restrains it. Because she remembers the seriously injured Luo Yunxiao. Yin Yuani, who is pressed to the ground by Dimingju and unable to move, suddenly shines with a dark red light. Yin Yuani's wounds begin to heal, and his suppressed body slowly stands up. Clearly, the fight is not over. Yin Yuani, who has stood up again, looks like a completely different person. His body shines with a dazzling black and red light. His eyes twinkle, making his whole face blurry. Vaguely, Mu Yan seems to see a double image on Yin Yuani's face. "Dimingju, what do you want to do to my son?" It's an old and rough voice, borrowing Yin Yuani's body to angrily question Dimingju. Mu Yan had also heard this voice before Luo Yunxiao was restrained by the restriction just now. She has already guessed that this should be Yin Wuji. Little Master and Yin Yuani's father, the lord of the netherworld domain. As soon as she thinks of what this person has done to little Marshall Uncle, Mayan's face suddenly sinks. But separated by two worlds, Yin Wuji can possess Yin Yuan's body and lend him such a powerful strength. This person is obviously very strong. Mu Yan can't help but hold Di Mingju's hand, her eyes revealing some worry. She's afraid that Di Mingju will be injured. Di Mingju gives her a gentle and comforting expression, "Don't worry, nothing will happen to me." Star Wolf, who has entered the Ning family at some point, immediately proudly raises his chin and sneers, "Even if Yin Wuji, that old thief, is here, Jun Shang would be too lazy to pay attention to him. What's more, it's just an insignificant skill like spirit not possessed by body. Yin Wuji can't even display half of his cultivation when he borrows Yin Yuan's body. Jun Shang only needs to move a finger to crush people to death." Hearing Star Wolf's words, Mu Yan sighs in relief and can't help but look at Di Mingju. Di Mingju feels his heart skip a beat when he is gazed at by those focused and shining peach blossom eyes. His ears are a little hot. Anyone who was looked at by the girl they loved with a gaze of worship and trust would be flustered and his heart would be shaken. Even the lofty emperor of the polar domain is no exception. He resists the urge to hold her in his arms and kiss her fiercely in public. He looked up at Yin Yuan. The gentleness in his eyes was instantly replaced by a bone-piercing killing intent. Di Mingju carelessly says, "Isn't the region lord very clear about what Ben Jun wants to do? Yin Yuan's worthless life is mine." "Di Mingju, you dare." Yin Wuji roared in anger, but there was some panic in his voice. Is the successor of my nether region, the successor of the nether Holy Spirit. If you kill him, it is equivalent to the polar domain declaring war on the nether region. Are you really going to disregard everything and stir up a war with two other regions? Are you going to watch as the people are plunged into misery and suffering? Di Mingju lets out a sneer of ridicule, his eyebrows as sharp as a knife. "Protectorate Lord Yin, you're really quick to accuse us. If you treasure your stupid son so much, why don't you keep a closer eye on him? Since he has the guts to humiliate this lord's fiancée, then he should have the guts to bear this lord's wrath." Yin Yuan's cold body seemed to shiver instinctively. Yin Wuji's voice is angry and anxious. "What fiancé?" Went to the floating island. How could the dignified future Holy Empress of the polar domain be on the floating island, and coincidentally run into Chapter 3705. Di Mingju, you're clearly talking irresponsibly. You want to stir up the flames of war between the polar domain and the nether domain. Di Mingju hooks up his lips, the corners of his eyes revealing a trace of impatience and fierceness. "Yin Yuan, I'm going to kill you today. Region Lord Yin, if you insist on thinking that this monarch is intentionally provoking the flames of war between the polar domain and the nether domain, then so be it. If the nether realm wants to start a war, the polar realm will accompany them." Yin Wuji could not believe his ears. Just for a woman. Di Mingju, are you crazy? Are you really willing to go to war with my nether realm just for a woman? He took a deep breath, feeling a little aggrieved, and softened his tone. Di Mingju, I admit that was rash this time. But didn't your fiancé suffer no losses? My nether realm is willing to express our sincerity and apologize to you. Mingtu Bay has already been taken, and I am willing to give it to the polar domain for free. This should be fine, right? Xing Lang's eyelids twitch, and he subconsciously looks at Di Mingju. The north of Mingtu Bay was ceded to the polar domain. This loss was too great for the nether realm. It seemed that Yin Wuji really valued his son Yin Yuan. Unfortunately, he was about to be disappointed. Star Wolf couldn't help but curl the corners of his lips, revealing a mocking sneer. Miss June and the Little Master are June Shang's reverse scales. Whoever touched it would die. Yin Yuanyi hurt Miss June so badly. He even wanted to encroach on the future divine empress of their polar domain. It would be strange if June Shang would let him go. As expected, these benefits that could make all those in power palpitate with eagerness were promised. But Di Mingju doesn't even have a trace of expression on his face. With a wave of his hand, a black longsword flew out of his hand and struck straight at Yin Yuanyi. Crackle! Dark blue flames burst out of Yin Yuanyi's chest, making him let out a shrill scream. The dark red light that enveloped his body flickered, as if it could be extinguished at any moment. Yin Yuanyi's face twisted in pain. However, his eyes were filled with fear and despair. "Father, save me. Save me. I don't want to die. Di Mingju, I didn't know she was your woman, I really didn't know. I thought she was Luo Yunxiao's sweetheart. If I had known that she was your fiancé, I would never have touched a single hair of hers. Di Mingju, let me go. As long as you let me go, my father will give you a lot of compensation." He had yet to finish his horse pleas. Di Mingju's second sword has already come out. Yin Yuanyi, a false immortal king, has no power to resist Di Mingju. His body was so stiff that he couldn't move at all. It was the flickering red light that controlled him to dodge to the side, allowing him to narrowly avoid the fatal blow. But the red light enveloping his body was getting weaker and weaker. Yin Wuji's voice was filled with rage, but it also carried an indescribable panic. "Di Mingju, don't go too far. What kind of compensation do you want? As long as you say it, we can discuss it." Di Mingju coldly enunciated each word. "I only have one request, and that is to let him die without a burial ground. Father, Imperial Mother, save me, save me. I don't want to die. Yin Yuanyi's shouts were heart-wrenching and lung-splitting, and he cut a sorry figure as he fled. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something, and screamed, Luo Yunxiao is in cahoots with that woman." Chapter 3706. Imperial Father, quickly order Luo Yunxiao to save my life. Di Mingju will never dare to hurt Luo Yunxiao. As long as Luo Yunxiao is my shield, I will definitely be saved. Mayan is simply shocked by the shamelessness of this father and son pair. How did they treat Little Master just now? Now they want Little Master to be Yin Yuanyi's shield. But fuck them. Mayan coldly glances at Di Mingju. Di Mingju raises his hand and directly sets up an isolation boundary, isolating Mayan and Luo Yunxiao from himself. He must kill Yin Yuanyi. But Yin Wuji has lived for so many years, and is also the lord of a region. If he is forced into a desperate situation, he might do something desperate. It would be bad if he really uses Luo Yunxiao as a shield or injures Mayan. Mayan has been worried about Luo Yunxiao's injury. Seeing that Di Mingju is dealing with Yin Wuji with ease, she turns around and goes to Luo Yunxiao's side. She carefully helps her up. "Little Master, how are you?" When she gets closer, she sees Luo Yunxiao's miserable appearance. Mayan's tears almost fall. At this time, there is almost no good flesh on Luo Yunxiao's body. That incomparably handsome face was densely covered in scars, and fresh blood was still dripping down at this moment. The wound on his abdomen was punched by Yin Yuanyi's fist. It is the severe pain of his broken bones and his internal organs being severely injured. There are even several white ribs directly piercing through the flesh on the left side. This is the unparalleled, young Master Yunxiao, that everyone in the Shuzhen continent seeks after. This is their Xiao Yao sex most brilliant, most elegant and peerless little master But now, he has been tortured to such a state by Yin Yuanyi and Yin Wuji, father and son. And listening to the meaning of Qi Huang's words. Little master may have suffered this kind of torture from childhood to adulthood. Luo Yunxiao opens his eyes in a trance and meets Mayan's red eyes, as well as her infuriated expression. At this moment, his cold and numb heart suddenly seems to be washed by a warm current. Something that is constantly hovering and growing in his heart, constantly trying to drill into his heart and soul, quietly disappears under the wash of this warm current. Luo Yunxiao's clothes suddenly move. With reddened eyes, Qi struggled to free herself from the spirit pet pouch and squeezed out. Seeing Luo Yunxiao's miserable appearance, Qi can no longer hold back and cries out. Master, how did you get hurt so badly? Why didn't you let me help you just now? Whoa. Qi wants to cry and Luo Yunxiao's arms. But Mu Yan's sharp eyes and quick hands pull him back. Mayan's face darkens as she says in a hoarse voice, do you want to make Junior Martial Uncle's injuries worse? Qi didn't dare to move anymore, but she continued to sob and cry. Mu Yan's heart ached and ached as she cried. At this time, the red energy that bound Luo Yunxiao had yet to disappear. Yao. Qi Zhao's Tian Mu Yan's cultivation was naturally unable to contend against the restriction left behind by an immortal venerable Yin Wuji. Yan, Tian Xiao Yao Master. Only after Di Mingju has thoroughly dealt with Yin Yuanyi and made Yin Wuji's power disappear from this part of the world, can Luo Yunxiao's injuries be completely healed. Mu Yan has no way to relieve Luo Yunxiao's pain, even if she has medical skills. She can only use Qi to carefully wipe the blood off him, and then sprinkle painkillers. She feels the hot liquid dripping on her body. Chapter 3707. Luo Yunxiao opens her eyes slightly and says weakly, don't cry, I'm fine. Qi stops sobbing. Mayan finds that Luo Yunxiao is still looking at her. She is startled to find that she is also crying. She bites her lip and says hoarsely after a long while, if senior brothers and Xiao Qi saw you suffer like this, their hearts would ache to death. Every time they were in danger, Xiao Shishu would always appear by their side, casually saving them from danger, and then casually leaving. But what about Xiao Shishu? He has suffered so much, endured so much humiliation and injustice. But they don't know anything. They can't do anything for Xiao Shishu. Mayan raises her reddened eyes and looks at Luo Yunxiao. Xiao Shishu, don't go back to the Nether Realm, okay? Come back to Xiao Yao City with me. My brothers have always missed you. If they see me take you back, they will be very happy. After a pause, she says word by word, Xiao Yao School is our home. Xiao Yao's 7 sons and Xiao Shishu are indispensable. We already have no master, and we don't want Xiao Shishu to leave us forever one day. Xiao Shishu, Yin Wuji is not your family, but we are. Come home with me, okay? Luo Yunxiao stares blankly at the pale girl in front of him, whose eyes are brighter than the stars. He only feels that something is slowly rolling in his heart. He can't tell what kind of feeling he has. Warmth, happiness, pain, bitterness, all emotions are intertwined together. He slowly closes his eyes and says to himself in his heart, that's enough. She treats him as family, as Xiao Shishu. She would weep because of her own pain. That's enough. At least he is not alone, at least he has the Xiao Yao School. That is his home, a home that belongs to him, Luo Yunxiao. He can't help but gently raise the corner of his mouth. His hands hanging by his side gently clench into fists. Go see your uncle. Luo Yunxiao closes his eyes and says lightly, I don't need treatment for the time being. Since he wants to be family, since he has already decided to be her Xiao Shu, then he must not cross the line. He can't let her find out and worry. It was the only thing he could do for her. Only then did Mayan remember that second maternal uncle Ning Zhongbai was also seriously injured just now. She hurried over to Ningyu and Ning Zhongbai. Mu Yan, don't worry. Ningyu hurriedly said, Father has already felt much better after eating the healing pills you gave him. Mayan breathes a sigh of relief, but she still takes out the Tian and Mo Qin. He used Shu Jing Qi Huang to treat Ning Zhongbai's internal injuries. The sound of the guqin dissipated. Ningyu suddenly asks in a soft voice, Mayan, aren't you and Master Luo a couple? Mu Yan looks at her in surprise. Of course not, Luo Yunxiao is my younger martial uncle. Who is my man? I made it so obvious just now. Can't you tell? The corner of Ningyu's mouth twitched. Alright, everyone saw it just now. Di Mingju suddenly appears, holding Mayan in his arms. However, the Ning family, whether it was the half-dead Ningyu or Ning Zhongbai, were all in a daze. Polar Domain's monarch was actually Mayan's fiancé. Were they really not dreaming? Chapter 3708. Ning Zhongbai's face turns pale when he hears this. He rushes over to cover his daughter's mouth. Don't talk nonsense. How can you make fun of the emperor? Mu Yan can't help but chuckle. Ningyu is right. You are my uncle, and Di Mingju is my future husband. Isn't it natural for him to call you uncle? Ning Zhongbai's lips tremble, dumbfounded. After a long while, he suddenly laughs in a low voice. Looking at Mu Yan, his expression is kind and gentle, full of gratification. If your mother knows that you have found such a good home, she will be very happy. Mu Yan's mind shudders, and she says in a low voice, Second uncle, how is my mother now? What happened that year? Ning Zhongbai looks startled, and his teeth involuntarily bite his lower lip. That year. He hasn't finished his words yet. Mu Yan suddenly hears an old, hoarse voice coming from behind. Yan Xian is not dead yet, but only I can take you to see her. Mu Yan turns around. She sees Ning Kunshan, with a big hole in his stomach, struggling to crawl towards her. His turbid eyes are full of hope. Girl, save me, save my life. Only if I am alive, can I take you to see your mother. Only I know how to save your mother. Mu Yan looks at him coldly, not hiding the disgust in her eyes. Where is my mother now? What did you do to her? Ning Kunshan's eyes are filled with tears, and his body is trembling because of the severe pain. I can't hold on any longer. Girl, save me first. Your mother is in the virtual jade reincarnation array. Only I can open that array. If I die, the virtual jade reincarnation array will be destroyed directly, and your mother's soul will fly and scatter. Mu Yan frowns. Ning Zhongbai says, what he said is true. The virtual jade reincarnation array was arranged by him. Other people in the Ning family, including his loyal father, have never been qualified to enter the array. Ning Kunshan's face was full of fear and pleading. Girl, why would I lie to you at a time like this? You have the backing of the Emperor Monarch. I can only live if you want me to live. If you want me to die, the Emperor Monarch only needs to lift a finger to kill me. Even if you cure me now, I will never be a threat to you. In fact, at this moment, Ning Kunshan really didn't have the slightest bit of malice towards Mayan. It's too late for him to regret it now. It's too late for him to repair his relationship with Mayan. How could he lie to her and harm her? Even if he wants to deceive him, in front of Di Mingju's absolute force, he's still as fragile as a piece of paper. With a light poke, he'll be pulverized. Ning Zhongbai glanced at Ning Fusheng, whose face was full of wrinkles and who was silently weeping. He couldn't help but show some hesitation on his face. Mayan, can you give the Ning family a way out? After all, they are our blood relatives. Especially Ning Fusheng, who was his biological father. No matter how many heartless things he had done, the shackles of blood could not be removed. How could he watch them die and not save them? Before Mayan could say anything, Ningyut said angrily in surprise, "Father, why are you being soft-hearted again? You think of them as blood relatives, but do they think of you as family?" Ning Zhongbai's face was pale. He mumbled for a long time, but couldn't say a word. Chapter 3709. Mu Yen smiles, takes out the Tian Mo Chin, and unhurriedly says, "Since uncle is pleading for them, then I'll spare their lives." Mu Yen, have you forgotten how they treated you? Ning Yu is simply furious. Her father's soft-heartedness is one thing, but now even Mu Yen is like the Virgin Mary, repaying evil with good. Mu Yen shows her a smile to calm down, and begins to play the Tian Mo Chin. The sound of the zither is melodious. The injuries of the Ning family members present begin to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fear and despair on their faces are gradually replaced by ecstasy. However, this joy only lasts for a moment, and is replaced by screams of horror. What about my cultivation? Why is my cultivation gone? Ah! It hurts. Why am I burned by the sun? I'm obviously not afraid of the sun. The Ning family is in a mess. Someone runs to Mu Yen and asks, "What did you do to us? What about our cultivation? Why are we burned by the sun?" Mu Yen sits there, casually plucking the strings. When they are done quarreling, she sneers and says with a teasing face, "I promised uncle to spare your lives, but I didn't say that the death penalty can be avoided, and the punishment can also be spared. Don't you like to hide in the dark and be complacent, and scheme against others as fools? Don't you like to attach yourself to others and suck their blood to help your family prosper? Now I'll fulfill your wish. From now on, you can show your darkness, selfishness, and shamelessness in the underground world. You can kill each other, or you can linger at death's door. You can also dream of the Ning family's meteoric rise. But in any case, you can only be like rats in the gutter, forever and ever, unable to see the light of day." Mu Yan's gaze falls on Ning Fusheng's face, and the corners of her mouth slowly curve up. "Grandfather, do you like the gift I offered?" Ning Fusheng falls to the ground, his eyes staring straight and his face ashen. After a long while, 2 lines of clear tears fall from the corners of his eyes. The Ning family members are angry and desperate. Someone recklessly rushes over to attack Mu Yen. However, what greeted them was the sharp long sabers of the Falling Moon tribe. Looking at the corpse on the ground, Ning Zhongbai's face turned pale and his lips trembled. Mu Yen doesn't even spare a glance at the corpse at her feet. Her sharp gaze swept over all the Ning family members present, and she said coldly, "Is there anyone who doesn't want to live and wants to die? You can step out now and I'll fulfill your wish." Just in time, the long blades of the Falling Moon tribe guarding Mayan's side are unsheathed with a swish. Cold air radiated in all directions. The members of the Ning clan were scared out of their wits. They didn't dare to question anything and ran away in an instant. Ningyu looks at Mu Yan's operation and is simply dumbfounded. Just now, she was afraid that her little cousin would be as soft-hearted as her father and repay evil with kindness. From the looks of it now, it wasn't a woman's benevolence. What a ruthless, merciless, and merciless she-devil. This move of Mu Yan's was really too ruthless. Did she let the Ning family survive? Indeed, he had survived. Moreover, he was still alive and kicking. Even if one used their knees to think, they would know how miserable the future of the Ning family would be. Without cultivation, they couldn't see the light of day. They no longer had the strength to deter anyone, and they couldn't find the resources they wanted. Chapter 37:10. From then on, they could only live sneakily like a rat in a sewer. For the Ning family, who had always been proud and virtuous, this was simply worse than death. Moreover, the Ning family used to act ruthlessly and arbitrarily. Even if they lived like this, they probably wouldn't be able to live for long. Those who couldn't bear the sight of the Ning family, but dared not speak up, would not let go of this opportunity to hit them while they were down. Ningyu felt that she couldn't help but sympathize with the Ning family. Of all people to provoke, they had to provoke Di Jun's fiancé. When the Ning family has run away, Mayan's line of sight turns to Ning Kunshan and Ning Fuxing, who are still in the same place. Where is my mother? Ning Fuxing has lost his soul, his face full of tears. Ning Kunshan's complexion turns green and white, staring at Mayan in disbelief. The hatred and resentment in his eyes can't be concealed no matter what. He didn't expect that. June Mayan really didn't kill him, but she crippled his cultivation. She also caused the whole Ning family to fall apart, with no possibility of prosperity. This is simply more unbearable than killing Ning Kunshan. His eyes are red, and the muscles on his face keep trembling. Suddenly, he opens his mouth and lets out a sharp laugh. June Mayan, you crippled my cultivation and destroyed my Ning family century-old foundation. You're so vicious and merciless, I will never let you have it easy. Want to find your mother, Ning Yanqin? Ha ha ha, you will never find her, and even if you find her, you can't save her. June Mayan, you are disloyal, unfilial, and utterly devoid of conscience. You can even deal such a murderous hand to your grandfather and ancestors. I curse you, to die a horrible death. You and your mother, Ning Yanqin, die together. Ha 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 ha. The laughter slowly becomes weak. Ning Kunshan's complexion is pale, and his body slowly falls down. His eyes are still wide open, black blood slowly flows from the corners of his mouth, and he stops breathing. Old ancestor. The muddle-headed Ning Fuxing sees this scene and suddenly sobers up. He screams and pounces on Ning Kunshan, tears falling like rain. Old ancestor, wake up. Ning Fuxing suddenly raised his head and looked at Mu Yan. The hatred in his eyes was like a sharp knife, wishing that he could tear Mu Yan into pieces. Bastard, are you satisfied? You killed our ancestor and destroyed our Ning family. Are you satisfied now? June Mayan, you're really worthy of being a child of the demon race. You're just like your father, sinister and vicious, cruel and heartless. One day, you will all go to hell. Mu Yan coldly looks at the hysterical old man. She doesn't even have the interest to talk nonsense with him. Everyone in the Ning family was like this. Selfish, greedy, paranoid. He would always live in his own world and always have his own set of rules of conduct. It was only right and proper for them to hurt others. If others resisted or retaliated, it would be treason. Talking to such a person would only be a waste of breath. Bang! The enchantment set up by Di Mingju on the side bursts open with a loud noise. Mu Yan immediately turned his head to look, only to see a fire charging, thunder crackling. Di Mingju, dressed in a black robe, slowly walks out from the fireworks and lightning. There isn't a speck of dust on his body. He steps out, and in one step, he's already in front of her. When he looks down, Mu Yan's figure is fully reflected in his ice-blue pupils. It's as if the woman in front of him is already his entire world. Charming enchantress of the city, heaven-defying baby's black-bellied father will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the site. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like Charming Enchantress of the City, heaven-defying baby's black-bellied father, please collect. Chapter 37:11. A warm smile slowly bloomed on Mu Yan's face. Ning Kunshin, Ning Fuxing, and the disgusting and shameless Ning family were all thrown to the back of her mind. The polar domain and carefree city were her home. Di Mingju, Xiao Bao, Qi Huang, her fellow apprentice brothers, little martial uncle, these were her family. What did the Ning family count as? Is Yin Yuani dead? Di Mingju frowned unhappily and shook his head. Yin Wuji didn't hesitate to consume his cultivation to open a space barrier passage for him and bring him back. But the corners of his lips slowly curled up, revealing a murderous and gloomy smile. Even if he goes back, he will only be a cripple through and through. Mu Yan, Yin Wuji dotes on this son so much, he should find the best doctor to treat him, right? Di Mingju sneered. Can Ben Jun's, Godslayer Thunder Fire, be easily treated by an ordinary doctor? Not to mention treatment. Anyone below the venerable immortal level, as long as they touched the Godslayer Thunder Fire, it would be as if they were pierced through by the 9 revolutions heavenly thunder, and the pain would be unbearable. Yin Wuji wanted to find someone to cure Yin Yuani, stop dreaming. Knowing that Yin Yuani would live the rest of his life worse than a paralyzed cripple, Mu Yan felt an indescribable comfort in her body and mind. But then she suddenly thought of something and frowned. How many sons does Yin Wuji have? Yin Yuani is crippled, he won't have ideas on little martial uncle, right? No. This kind of biased parents should be struck by lightning. She absolutely could not let little martial uncle go back to be tormented by them. The blue veins on Di Mingju's forehead throbbed, and his face immediately turned as black as the bottom of a pot. When fighting with Yin Wuji just now, he noticed that Mu Yan was very careful when taking care of Luo Yunxiao. This heartless woman. She didn't even shed a few tears for him. She was actually so distressed for Luo Yunxiao. The jealousy in Jun Shangdaren's heart was overturning the seas. But on the surface, he still said indifferently, the polar domain and the nether domain have been at odds for so long, and both sides have pretty much figured out each other's ins and outs. But I've never heard that Yin Wuji has a son like Luo Yunxiao. It's clear that Yin Wuji has never thought of letting Luo Yunxiao become the successor of the nether realm. Hearing this, Mu Yan breathed a sigh of relief. Then she couldn't help but feel unhappy. Yin Wuji, that old dog, has no taste. My youngest martial uncle Gao Shan Jingxing is talented and good-looking. How is he not as good as that idiot Yin Yuani? He didn't cultivate youngest martial uncle and treated him as an invisible person. Instead, he supported a piece of trash like Yin Yuani. Di Mingju is finally at the end of his patience. He clasps her waist and fiercely presses her into his arms. Mountain scenery. Beauty and talent. Your evaluation of Luo Yunxiao is very high. Mayan stares blankly. Seeing the man's gloomy expression that could drip water, she can't help but burst into laughter. Di Mingju, you're really jealous of everyone. In my heart, youngest martial uncle is equivalent to my master. Seeing master injured, shouldn't I be concerned? She felt that she had enough desire to survive. He even used the phrase, high mountain scenery, which was obviously used to describe the elderly. I didn't expect Jun Shangdaren to actually be jealous. Chapter 37:12. Mayan's eyes widen little by little. You mean, Xiao Shu is going to marry the demon princess? This news is really explosive. Why didn't Xiao Shu tell them that he already has a fiancé? Mayan thinks of the expressions of her fellow apprentices after she tells them this news, and she can't help but smile. Xiao Qi said before that he and Xiao Shu were the only single dogs left. Now it seems that Xiao Qi has always been the only single dog. She also inexplicably feels relieved in her heart. Just now, in the battle with Yin Yuanyi, Xiao Shu desperately stood in front of her, even disregarding his own life. There's a vague idea in Mayan's heart that takes root and sprouts, as if it will break through the soil. Xiao Shu is too good to her. From a long time ago, he would always appear in her most dangerous moments. He clearly doesn't want to have too much involvement with others, but because of her request, he was even willing to stand for Laozi's #1 shop in the world. Again and again, he shows a gentle and focused expression, but when she looks over, it always changes back to indifference. And when she was tortured by the dark holy flame, he held her in a trembling and careful embrace. At that time, there was a voice in her ear that kept telling her Luo Yunxiao treats her differently. No martial uncle could do this for his nephew. She doesn't want to lose any of her relatives in the Xiaoyao sect. But in her heart, Xiao Shu is just Xiao Shu. He's her teacher, a close relative who is like a brother and a father to her, a person she can risk her life to protect. But there's not a trace of love between a man and a woman. The battlefield is hanging by a thread, and the danger is like a pile of eggs. Mayan forcibly suppresses these thoughts, forcing herself not to think about it. But she also knows that she can't escape forever. But at this moment those irritations and worries disappear in an instant because of Di Mingju's words. She's so stupid. Why does she always like to think that she's in love? She can risk her life to protect Xiao Shu, so why can't he protect her? What's more, Xiao Shu looks cold on the outside, but he also silently protects the other people of the Xiaoyao sect. Mayan's eyebrows are curved, and her smile is indescribably bright and brilliant. She grabs Di Mingju and asks, "Have you seen the demon princess? Are they good-looking? Are they gentle and docile? Are they good enough for my junior martial uncle, who is unmatched in the world?" Jun Shangdaran almost fell out with these direct questions. Mu Yan didn't seem to notice. And most importantly, would the demon race's princess be willing to marry into the Xiaoyao sect? In the face of Di Mingju's sinister gaze, a trace of craftiness flashes through the young girl's eyes. She says with a beaming smile, "Di Mingju, our Xiaoyao school has an unwritten rule. Whether the children of the school marry, they can only be recruited into the school, they can never be married out. So what if she was a demon princess? If the princess of the demon clan wants to marry my martial uncle, she has to follow the rules of the carefree school. What do you think?" Juan Shangdaran. Hearing this, Star Wolf's eyes widened. So, if Jun Shang wanted to marry Miss June, he could only marry into the Xiaoyao sect. What a joke. Their Jun Shang was the dignified emperor of the polar domain, the #1 expert of the Xuxian continent. How many women cried and yelled to marry into the polar domain? How could Jun Shang possibly marry into the family of a small? Before he could finish thinking about it, Star Wolf hears his Jun Shang's indifferent and cold voice, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Chapter 37:13. Ben Jun can marry into the Xiaoyao sect today. Yen, will you marry Ben Jun today? How about we consummate our marriage tonight? Ben Jun hasn't tried the bed of the Xiaoyao sect yet. Mu Yan. Flirting with him instead of getting flirted with, so annoying. On the side, Xing Lang's mouth twitches fiercely, wishing he could cover his eyes. No, this isn't his aloof, arrogant, unparalleled Junshang, absolutely not. He just had an auditory hallucination. That's right, it must be an auditory hallucination. After Yin Yuanyi disappears, the seal that Yin Wuji left on Luo Yunxiao is lifted. Without the obstruction of the seal, Mu Yan's Shen musician skill, art of yellow qi, immediately plays its role. Soon, her battered body recovers. Her badly mutilated face also becomes incomparably handsome. Mu Yan looks at the handsome face of her little martial uncle, and she can't help but sigh. It would be a pity if such a peerless man was disfigured. Luo Yunxiao's ears are a little hot from her unblinking gaze. After enduring for a while, she finally couldn't help but say coldly, "What are you looking at me for?" Hee hee. Mu Yan shows a sly smile. "Little martial uncle, be honest, do you have a fiancé?" Luo Yunxiao stares blankly, subconsciously looking up to meet her eyes. Mu Yan has an expression that says, "Don't pretend anymore, I know everything, Di Mingju told me, the demon princess, and you are engaged, is it true?" Luo Yunxiao subconsciously clenches her left hand. There have been several heartfelt imprints there. It was his betrothal, his fetters, his hopeless love and hope. Mu Yan's expression becomes serious, and she cautiously says, "Little martial uncle, isn't this engagement voluntary? You don't like the demon princess? Could it be that little martial uncle was forced by the demon lord? How can this be tolerated? How can the people of the Xiaoyao sect be bullied by others? Even forced to marry? What's more, the one being bullied is little martial uncle. What's wrong with the demon princess? If the demon princess dares to threaten their little martial uncle, then she must be killed. At worst, they could just go to the demon race's headquarters and kidnap the bride." Mu Yan is already secretly imagining how little martial uncle is being bullied by the unscrupulous demon lord and forced into prostitution. This scene. However, Luo Yunxiao suddenly said in a hoarse voice, "I volunteered." Mayin's train of thought pauses, and when she raises her head to meet Luo Yunxiao's face, she can't help but stare blankly. She had never seen youngest martial uncle with such an expression. It was as if he was swearing an oath, but also as if he was venting the deepest secrets and desires in his heart. Word by word, he repeated what he had just said, "This engagement is of my own free will. I have no regrets in this life." Even if he knew it was just an illusion. Even if he spurned his own greed and cowardice. No matter how deep one's hope was, the more despair one would feel when the pain came in the future. However, he still gladly endured it and had no regrets in this life. Mayan stares blankly for a good while, then a brilliant smile blooms on her face. It seemed like junior martial uncle really liked the demon princess. There was no blind marriage, no forced marriage. No forced prostitution. That's really great. Mayan happily says, "Little martial uncle, it's really great that you can be together with the person you like." She hopes that everyone in the Xiaoyao sect can get what they want, and grow old together with their loved ones. Di Mingju's low and cold voice comes from behind. Mayan promptly puts away the Tian Mo Qin and returns to Di Mingju's side. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.